Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Third Coast Reptile right here on YouTube. How you doing today? It's hot, right? Summertime, hanging out, beaches, water, sun, fun. Well, guess what, guys? Your reptiles are hot too. In today's episode, we're going to go over how to take care of your reptile in hot weather. Here we go. Well, okay, so let's talk about tortoises because my channel is mainly about tortoises and how adaptive they are to hot weather, hot climates. There's a big misconception about sulcata tortoises in particular. They assume because, oh, they're from the Sahara Desert. Oh, sweet. So they don't need any water. They don't need any shade. They don't need any humidity. Well, nothing farther from the truth. If you own a sulcata, even indoors, they need to have those requirements, especially as hatchlings. All tortoise hatchlings require humidity, regardless of the species. You heard it here. They all need humidity. And maybe I'll do another tortoise hatchling care guide in the future. That's a good idea. Write that down for later. Okay, so sulcata tortoises, they live in the Sahara Desert, as I mentioned, and they are very, very creative and really good survivors when it comes to avoiding natural elements such as hot sun and low humidity. So what they do is they burrow. They burrow down in the ground to find humidity, to find cooler temperatures, and help survive. They do still have to scavenge for food, but they're able to store the nutrients in that food for a long time. Doesn't mean they shouldn't eat because they really need to eat. And ideally, you want to treat your animals better than they would be in the wild, right? I mean, it's just a given. But there are some misconceptions out there. Oh, you don't need to feed your animals but once a month. You don't need to give them water hardly ever because they're desert tortoises. That's false. Give them water, keep them hydrated, mist their enclosures once in a while, especially species like my Egyptian over here. You want to go ahead and mist that enclosure every morning because they're a coastal tortoise. They receive that humidity and moisture every morning, even though they are classified as a desert species tortoise. So that's one way. But what about other animals that are like, well, the redfoot tortoises like I have here? What about those guys? They're very creative too. And instead of burrowing, they actually find marshy areas and water and actually throw mud on their shells. Now, this helps for a few reasons. Number one, it helps them stay cool. That mud acts like a cooling jacket around their shells and keeps them nice and cool. Number two, interesting fact about throwing mud on your shell, and you could tell your mom and dad about this at home that you want to throw mud on yourself to avoid mosquitoes. Believe it or not, mosquitoes can actually get between the scutes on the shell of a tortoise and get blood, just like they would a human. So tortoises really can't, reach their arms around on their big shells. So what do? They throw mud on the back of their shells, and the mosquito tries to get to their shell, and they can't because their little needle killer horde thing can't get to their shell. And that's another reason why they put mud on their shells. And that mud has humidity and moisture in it naturally because mud is dirt and water commingled. So they use that moisture and humidity to help absorb moisture and humidity into their bodies right through their shells. So that's why redfoot tortoises need dirt, they need water, they need mud, even in the wild, because that's how they survive the elements that they're in. The really hot tropical forests, that's what they use. Hey guys, I'm taking a moment in the video to talk about Husbandry Pro. This is a video I did previously of a company called Husbandry Pro. They're a simple point and shoot style application, just like this. You take your camera on your tablet or phone, point it at the QR codes that you can print out yourself, and then simply see the history of that animal, what it ate last, how much it weighs, and a ton more information. Go to husbandrypro.com using the link I provided you right here in this video, and you can see everything they have to offer. Husbandry Pro. How can you take precaution in taking care of your tortoises either indoors and outdoors? Well, number one, get you one of these bad boys right here. This is a thermometer, digital thermometer, that you just point and shoot, and it tells you the temperature right here on the back display. These are relatively cheap. You can get them at any big box hardware store place or even some reptile shops or good old Amazon. So using these, they have a little laser thing in here that you use to point with. You can't use it through objects like glass to see the other side. It'll detect the temperature of the glass, not the object you're trying to see. So make sure you're in direct contact with that animal. Also, avoid direct, I could say this, direct eye contact with that laser because it could hurt your eyes and your reptile's eyes. We don't want to do that. We're trying to help them, not hurt them, right? What to say. So use this. You want to measure the temperature on their shells, especially when they're outside and the sun's beating down on them. Predominantly darker shells attract more heat. Obvious reasons, because their shell's darker, absorbs heat. Lighter color deflects heat. So you want to make sure that the shell is nice and cool along with them. Outdoors, you want to keep your tortoises no more than like 85, 90 degrees outside. And that kind of brings us into the next situation here. I'm going to put this laser gun down before it fires. So that brings us into our next point here, and that is, how do you know if your tortoise is too hot? Obviously, you can measure them with the gun is one way, but another way, without, say, you don't have one of these fancy thermometers, how do you know your tortoise is too hot? You got to check those eyes. Tortoises tend to have watery, runny eyes when they're too hot. So that's one way to know if your tortoise is too hot. Another thing is you want to see how their movements are in the enclosure. You want them to be moving around. If they're hiding in the shade under the sun, away from the sun, that's good. That gives them a chance to get away and get some relief from the heat. You may want to spray down that enclosure too periodically and make sure that water is nice and clean and accessible for your tortoises to get in and cool off. So those are some ways you can take care of them both indoors and outdoors and protect them from the heat, because they can overheat, and there are ways that they adapt and kind of deal with the climates that they're in. They don't actually thrive in deserts. They just have ways to deal with them, and they have tolerance for hot temperatures. And they do like to bask, and they do like to get direct sunlight because of the UV benefits that they get from the sun. So it's not a bad thing that they're in direct sunlight, but just give them opportunities. Give them choices to go in the shade, in the sun, in water. Just give them opportunities for all sorts of choices. Warning: if you suspect that your tortoise has overheated, contact your vet immediately. Different temperatures, different dry, mud, sand. Give them all these different opportunities. I'm ranting. You're bored. Let's call this one a day. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't, please subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Bye now.